Hi everyone, this is Robert. Welcome to IDG Live. We have got a trailer, two trailers in fact, for House of the Dragon Season 2. So that's what we're going to be looking at today. If you were hoping this week that we'll be looking at, I think I said we'll be looking at House Royce in the Vale. We will come back to that, I think, next week. But two trailers dropped for House of the Dragon, so we will break them down. The way I've done this is I've assumed that you've watched the trailer. If not, there is a link down in the description. Feel free to go and have a look. There are two trailers. I've taken screen caps from them rather than trying to sort of pause and things like that. I've taken some screen shots from them, and we'll just talk our way through them. I've taken the approach of, rather than saying, let's look at this one and then let's at this one, just kind of jumbled them all together in what makes some kind of sense as an order to me. I will start by saying at the beginning, if you're long-time viewer, then you will know this already, but the spoilers policy here is TV show spoilers are not okay, book spoilers are fine. And what I mean by that is the book has been out for a while, so we will talk about what the book says will happen. That probably is going to be roughly what happens in the TV show, but they have made some changes, and we'll pick up on a few. There's in particular one that I will mention quite early on because it's actually quite a significant change. So just because something happened in the book doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to happen on the TV show, but there is your spoiler warning. If you want to go in completely fresh, then this may not be the stream for you, but if you want to know what it was that we were looking at, then let's do it. I tried to be clever. Here we go. Right. The way that they've done this is to do two different trailers. One is the Team Black trailer, one is the Team Green trailer. Now, this is trying to set up what seems to be the marketing ploy that they've been going with for season 2, which is all must choose. We've had the build-up. Season 1 was the build-up to the Dance of the Dragons. As of season 2, everyone has to choose. And as we'll see as we're going through these images, quite a lot of the action is, yes, we get some battles, we get some politicking, but a lot of this is, where are the major houses of Westeros going to fall? Are they going to side with Rhaenyra? Are they going to be siding with Aegon? So that's what we've got going on here, and the two trailers are sort of skewed, one for each side. So the Team Black trailer starts off with Rhaenyra setting out her stall. You'll see some of the lines along the bottom as we're going through the pictures here, but basically she says, my father said that I was heir and he never changed his mind. And then we go over to Team Green, and you have Alicent who says he changed his mind on his deathbed because he realized that the kingdom would never accept a woman on the Iron Throne. So those are the two starting points we have here, and that is the big change that we had, really. They made quite a few changes in season 1, but the big change in terms of motivations is that in the book it was pretty clear that this was a blatant power grab by Team Green. Here they've added another couple of layers of nuance to this, in as much as Alicent seems genuinely to think that her husband Viserys wanted Aegon to be king, and she genuinely doesn't seem to want to go against Rhaenyra, who was her childhood friend. Again, that wasn't the case in the book. So they've set this up as to be slightly more mixed, slightly more nuanced than it comes across in the book. And I think that they're probably wanting people to start picking sides, engage with this a little bit more, which obviously many people will wish to do. I will be fascinated, though, in that from the book community, I would say that 95% of people are Team Black here. I don't know many of anybody who actively came out and said, yeah, I'm cheering on Team Green. Whether they will change that, whether they will add in a few more layers of nuance here, I do not know. But that's quite an uphill battle, I think, for the book community to get them to a position. put this in the chat. Actually, I'd be fascinated if you are Team Green. Let me know, because I get the impression that not many people are. Anyway, here we go. So this is what we start out. There are both of these trailers. There are two sides to every story. Watch both and choose a side. So that's the setup. And the story picks up pretty much as season 1 ended. Season 1, if you remember, the last big act of season 1 was the battle over Shipbreaker Bay. We had Aemond on Vagar, and he kills Lucerys, Rhaenyra's son. He didn't mean to. In the book, it's a lot less clear, but on the TV show they made it very clear that this was not an accident, but he did not have control over his dragon. So we're going to pick up in the light of that. We're going to see what happens over in Team Black, which here we'll see. First of all, I think that they're going to be sort of searching for the body. This is a beach you can see right off in the distance there. That, I think, is the big drum tower of Storm's End. So they're looking out over Shipbreaker Bay, trying to find the body. And here we have what looks like a funeral. So whether they actually find his body or not, I think a lot of this first episode will be mourning the death of a son. And here we are. That's Jacaerys, who's had a bit of a glow up, I think, by the looks of it, between seasons. And the younger child there, that is young Prince Joffrey. So that's the I'm assuming is going to be the same scene as this, or earlier on perhaps. And we get a lot of shots here of Rhaenyra trying to work out what she's going to do. How she's going to respond to this, because she's lost a son. This was the hope was perhaps maybe there could have been a chance at some sort of negotiated settlement, but now this seems very unlikely from their perspective. I'm just going to very quickly out there too. I did ask about who's. I'm intrigued who, if there are any people here who are supporting Team Green, and I think there were a couple here. Team Green only for Sunfire, says Sydney K. Yeah, most other people are saying Team Black, so I think it's going to be quite an uphill. AK Channel TV saying Team Green for life. Lanquin saying Team Green has Otto. So I'm okay. So there's a few people. There are a few people who are Team Green. Okay, let's go back to these pictures we've got here. So this is the back of Corlys Velaryon. Now, he is going to be an increasingly important character in the show. He came across, I think, quite well in season 1, but we do have to remind ourselves he is a living legend at this point. House Velaryon are the richest, one of the most powerful families in all of Westeros. He has completed his 9 voyages. He has come back with riches from afar. They've got this huge fleet, Driftmark. They are dragon riders as well. They are hugely powerful. Rhaenyra needs to keep them on side. And they had a bit of a conflab at the end, a bit of a discussion at the end of season 1, and he wasn't around for a lot of that time because he was injured and ill, and he is now just coming back. So we will see here, as you see here, he's got what looks like some kind of a cane, or he's walking with a limp. So he's still not well. This is his last great back, is the way that he sees it. He's just going to try and look, he's an older man than he comes across here on the show, and he sees this as his last great battle that he has. So he's advising, you must crush this beast at its head. You know, let's not mess around. We're now in a matter of we have to go straight in. Try and kill um, exactly who he means by that. Maybe Aegon himself, but you have to actually just go straight in for it. His wife, Rhaenys, however, gives this really nice little speech. She was the voice of moderation, if you remember, at the end of season 1, and here she's basically saying, if you want to stop it, now's the only time, because the moment we actually get into proper warfare, then all is forgotten. All of the whys and wherefores are forgotten. You just get caught up in it, and it's just going to cause huge amounts of mayhem and misery. So she here is a bit of a voice of reason. Let's go and actually, I've got lots more of these slides to get through, but let's have a quick flick through the chat. I think I have a few comments. Blackfire, thank you so much. That's your first super sticker. Thank you. I hugely appreciate that. And also you're saying, finally, I've been wanting to catch you live and show you love for months. Well, thank you very much. I found your lives about 6 months ago and they get me through my day. Thank you. I hugely appreciate that. Thank you very much indeed. John Buxton, channel member, saying, shout out to Robert, Mods, and everyone else here. Absolutely. Thank you for that. And I think I have one more. Can't say it immediately. But let's go to the next set of slides. Damon is, as his way, listening in to a lot of these discussions. He has already come up with the plan for season 1. He knows that the moment Team Black don't have a toehold on the mainland, and his plan is to go to the Riverlands, to Harrenhal, join up with a few allies that they have there, and establish that toehold while they seek allies elsewhere. So that's where he's at the start of this. Flipping over to Team Green, Otto here is now again giving some words of wisdom. It's almost as if he kind of realized what has happened. He's talking now. He's saying people used to be before this before killed Charis, then perhaps it's just about rights and wrongs and who should inherit. But now people are going to be fighting with the satisfaction of vengeance, is what he says. We may not be completely on his side, but I think he's right here. At which point we get on to two shots here that if you've read the book, you will probably be very aware of what this is. This is blood and cheese. Now, I will give another spoiler warning here. This is going to be quite big and quite shocking, and it will happen almost certainly in either episode 1 or episode 2. This is the reaction to what happened with the death of Lucerys. Is in the book, Damon goes through his contacts and hires via Lady Mysaria, who we don't see in either of the trailers, it has to be said, hires a couple of people known only as Blood and Cheese. Blood used to be a member of the Watch. He's a rat catcher in the Red Keep. And they get hired to get vengeance, basically. They get hired on the basis that one of Rhaenyra's sons has been killed. So there needs to be some sort of equality with this in some way. Now, what this first picture here looks to be like is somebody holding up a coin bag to a guard who presumably is going to let them in. And then here they are heading down a tunnel. Now, the point about the rat catcher here, Cheese, is that in the Red Keep there's a myriad of tunnels. We saw this times in Game of Thrones, Song of Ice and Fire. This is how Tyrion managed to escape. Varys showed him out. Arya managed to find her way out through these tunnels. There are tunnels all over the place in the Red Keep, and the rat catchers know them all. And so this is why a rat catcher is one of those people who, pardon me, is involved in this. Now, I did speculate that they will add on. This is the last season that they may add on another layer to this. In as much as in the book, it's just a simple. In the show, they've added on this element of a spy war. Lady Masseria um, and um, Laris Strong are going to find themselves in opposition. And Laris Strong, at the very end of the season, he basically firebombed Masseria's home. Now, he gave a little speech basically asking Alicent for permission to go after Masseria to take out her spy network. Um, Most people missed that for the simple reason that we were concentrating on what was actually the visuals, which was the weird foot scene. But while that was going on, he was basically asking for permission and was given permission to go and take on Masseria. Masseria will therefore, she will feel as if this comes from Otto, she will wish to be getting some revenge. So I wonder whether there's going to be an extra layer going on here, not just Damon getting revenge, but also Lady Masseria. Okay, so they get into the Red Keep. Um, this is Helena. This actually, there are a few shots here which were released not as part of the trailer. You can see the qualities are a lot better than just screenshots from the trailer. This, I do not know. It may be at the same time as Blood and Cheese. This could be her just sat waiting and not knowing what's about to happen. Maybe she's about to have a vision of what will happen. That would be horrendous. At any event, this is a bloody rag. This is not going to go well, and as it's violence is what we've got. And we then get a funeral. Now, who we have here is Alicent, and we see Helena. I think Helena, probably for most of the rest of the season, is going to be pretty quiet. We're not going to see much of her. She should be in huge mourning for her loss here. And Alicent, as we'll see a lot more images of Alicent as we're going through, this seems to affect Alicent hugely. If you remember back to when we had the teaser trailer, whenever it was, a few months ago, in that there were a lot of shots of her looking very pensive, quite sad. There was a shot that we still don't know exactly where it fits in of what seems to be her stood in front of a lake in some kind of nightgown or something like that. So she does seem to be not this kind of driving force of anything in this season. She seems to be uh, really sad about what's happened. So these two here are clearly involved in this funeral. It's interesting that there don't appear to be other people. They've just opened these doors here, and the funeral procession is heading out. Um, and we don't know, but those look like small folk, perhaps. Some of them are reasonably well dressed, but they appear to be sad. They appear to be part of the mourning. This is, I think, probably one of the last times that the small folk, the people of King's Landing, are genuinely sad and affected by what happens with the Targaryens here. What we will see, and we saw a little bit in the first trailer, not much here, is that the people start to turn. Now, that will happen through the course of this season. It should be quite an important step where we have the people, and it was shadowed a few times actually in season one, where the people are starting to, first of all, be scared because it suddenly dawns on them that there's a civil war with dragons, and they really don't want dragons to be coming in and attacking King's Landing because that could go quite badly. But also that the Targaryens don't genuinely seem to care about them that much. So we should see this over the course of season 2 and into season 3, the mood of the populace change, in particular after the Battle of Rook's Rest, which we'll get onto in a little bit. So there's, again, Alicent, all the way through this, we're seeing Alicent. She seems different to how she was in season one. She seems um, to be affected um, by what's been going on, and we get little snippets of her trying to persuade people about the path of peace, about the possibility, about or she's sort of basically saying how sad she is. So it's good. It's going to be tough, I think, watching Alison. But people will react in different ways. I don't know. I genuinely don't know where this picture of this Aegon. Obviously, he's got something in his head there that he's hitting whatever it is in front of him. Now, this could be anywhere. My best guess, I put this here because my best guess is that they do in the book. They do eventually manage to capture Blood, and he is rather horrendously tortured for a very long time. And perhaps this is what's going on here. Perhaps this is Aegon just letting out his frustrations because suddenly this has become very personal for him too. Um, then, I mean, I've put in a few pictures here of Aegon, which again, this could happen at any point, but he is. Uh, he was reluctant. If you remember the reluctant king towards the end of season one, that has gone. He is no longer the reluctant king. He's now accepted it. If you remember that scene when he did get crowned, he was holding up Blackfire. That's the moment that he sort of changed his mindset, as far as we can tell. And from then on, he is very much the king, and he does want it. And he's willing to do things to hold of his place. Just having a quick look at the chat. Maura Lee, thank you very much. Very earlier before we came on air, saying, been enjoying all the short videos you've been making. They are great. Thank you also for the stories and well-told tales. You are very welcome indeed. And J.O. saying, who is your favourite character in House of the Dragon, Fire and Blood, and why? I don't know if I have a favorite character. I find some characters fascinating. Fire and Blood. I find Larys Strong fascinating. They've obviously taken him in a slightly different direction on the TV show. I also really love both Adam and Alyn Velaryon. Alyn Velaryon in particular seems like a fascinating character who we see a little bit more as we're going after the Dance of the Dragons. He's got a bigger role after the dance than he actually has in the dance. But all of House of Velaryon I find fascinating. The Sea Snake himself is a great character. Okay, so this shot here, this is pretty sure the Red Keep. And I've kept this one in the slideshow because of the banners. It's quite a sort of a small thing, but it I think shows its attention to detail thing. At the beginning of the war, both sides had the same banner because they were all just House Targaryen. It was only a little way in that they realised that if they've got armies out there, they have to be able to distinguish between the two sides. They have to show who's in charge of which city and castle and things like that. So they started to distinguish themselves with their banners. Now, what we've got here, this is the Team Green banner, which is the green background, the high tower green, and a golden dragon on the front, which is because Aegon Aegon the Second, as he is calling himself. His dragon is Sunfire, who is an incredibly beautiful. We're told the most beautiful dragon in Westeros, and this wonderful golden color. So that's what they've got there. Rhaenyra, incidentally, I don't think we've seen any of her banners yet, but she comes up with a slightly more complicated, which is sort of quartered with House Arryn and House Velaryon, as well as House Targaryen, all represented on it. Now, this is Eric or Arik Cargill. Now, we don't know when in the show they're going to be doing this. This happened relatively swiftly in the book, which is Team Green's response to what happened with Blood and Cheese. It's still at this point, if you think about it, the war is still quite low key at this point. They're still just doing, um, let's send an assassin over here kind of maneuver, rather than let's send all the armies out. The armies will be coming very soon, but at this point, they have another attempt at subterfuge. And you remember the twin members of the King's Guard. Eric is there in the King's Guard of Aegon. Eric is in the King or Queen's Guard of Rhaenyra. Now, the cunning plan is that Eric is going to smuggle himself over to Dragonstone, put on his armor, pretend to be Eric, wander around, and kill. I think the eventual aim, I think, was probably to kill Rhaenyra herself. Um, but the thought was that if anyone saw him, they just assume he was his twin brother. Now, I'm absolutely sure they will show this. I don't know when, as I say, I don't know when in the season they'll do it. It's the kind of thing that they might slot in a little bit later if they've got a lot that they want to squeeze in those first few episodes. But in any event, I think this is pretty clearly what is happening here, and we will see in the books what happens is that the two of them, and that's how he's discovered, and they fight to the death. So that, I think, is what is going on there. This is quite cool. You see, this is Rhaenyra, who is actually going to her dragon, and we'll see all of these all around here. These are the dragon keepers. Now, I don't know, people with better eyes than me will be able to make out if that's her dragon or if that is Sea Smoke. Now, Sea Smoke is the dragon that Lenor, her first husband, had. And we did see in the earlier trailer what looks like an image of her speaking to somebody who was perhaps riding Sea Smoke. So, as I say, my eyes I'm afraid, aren't quite good enough to make out which dragon that is in the smoke there. But this goes one of two ways. Either this is a storyline about her coming to terms with the fact that perhaps her ex-husband's dragon might be used by somebody else, or this is an indication that she is going to take a slightly more proactive role in dragon riding in the TV show than she did in the books. Because in the books, during this period, she's a lot more stay at home is probably the wrong way of saying it. She was acting more like a general, looking after her, well, guiding her troops across the map, rather than someone heading out and leading them from the front. And for the first while, then in the books, apparently she was so in mourning, she was so in distress about. She just remember this moment. She just lost a child as well, a baby, and then she's lost her son, and she goes into deep mourning for quite a while. And Corliss basically takes over for a few days. Okay, here's Evan Berkovitz saying, is the audio partly garbled? I hope it isn't, because I thought we got the audio dropping out. Oh, I'm sorry about that, everyone. I thought we got the audio sorted, but perhaps there's still more to go. Anyway, I shall keep going and hope that it gets itself sorted. And let's go to Clueless Bengal. Hi there, you're in the chat saying he's not reading the chat, he'll notice in an hour or so. I don't know, is that about the audio? Okay, well, I'm not sure if there's a lot I can do about it, I'm afraid. Just while I'm sat here, I'll just double check that. Yep, it thinks the audio is working. Apologies. I'm going to keep going, and hopefully I will get this all sorted properly in a week or two. Anyway, let's go back to Um, the other reaction that we have. So we know that um, Jacaerys, his mission was to go to get allies. So Lucerys went to Baratheon. Jacaerys headed up northwards. First of all, in the book, stopping off in the Vale through House Allen, then heading up to White Harbour, then heading up to Winterfell. Now, what they're going to cover on the TV show, I do not know. Almost certainly they won't. They won't cover White Harbour. I think, I hope that they cover the Vale. Probably it won't be take too long, but I think that they will do. Um, and although we we don't know, he's almost certainly going to Winterfell. Now, the uncertainty we've got here is that this is clearly in the north, and that's clearly on the wall. Now, in the book, he doesn't seem to go to the wall. The character, he is the character here on the right of your screen. Character on the left, very probably, and we can't see him, but on the left is Cragen Stark. Now, this is intriguing why they go to the wall on a number of levels. We know that Jacaerys and Cragen, they become firm friends. When Jacaerys goes up there, we're told that they go hunting together, they hang out. We're not told that they go to the wall, which is a couple of hours, a couple of weeks travel to get up to the wall. And Jacaerys could fly up there, but the others couldn't. So why are they there? Perhaps what will happen is that you'll find out, oh, actually, Cragen is just at the wall just inspecting it. Or, and they just wanted to show us the wall, or they are going to carry on with what they dropped in the plot, the kind of massive lore change shift they dropped into the plot in season one, which was authorized by George R. R. Martin, we have to say, which was this a Song of Ice and Fire being uh, Aegon the Conqueror's vision, that he has this vision that the Targaryens must rule Westeros in order to save it from and keep it united in order to save it from an attack from the north, from the other. Now, that was a huge shift. This is why the Targaryens invaded in the first place. And they could just leave it there. But the fact that they've gone up to the wall does make me wonder, are they going to go a bit further? Are we going to see, if not see White Walkers, but are they going to talk about Legends of the Long Night? Does Jacaerys know? Has he been told yet by his mother? He's the heir now. Rhaenyra thinks that she is the queen, and so he is the heir. So she should theoretically have told him. So does he know now? Is he going to go up to Craig and Stark and start talking about this? And Craig and Stark's going to say, "Yes, well, we've got all these legends about the Long Night." I don't know, but it's possible. Mattia asking, does he know about the prophecy already? We don't know. Um, we're not told that he was told, but then they skipped huge amounts of time in season one, so maybe he was. Okay, so and that's intriguing because we don't see Winterfell here; we just see them up there, and there were lots of plot points that in the book they could have gone with. There's the idea a lot of these come from mushrooms, so we shouldn't necessarily take them all completely seriously. But there is legends that perhaps his dragon left some eggs up there. There's the rumor that maybe he had a romance with Sarah Snow, the bastard half sister of Stark. Maybe that they even got married. Are they going to do those plot lines? I personally, I think them showing the wall makes those kind of plot lines less likely because I don't think that they will try and drop in half a dozen plot lines in the 2 or 3 episodes that Sarah is going to be up in the north. I think they will do 1 or 2, and they have to end up with this marriage pact, which is what gets the Starks on side with Team Black. Okay, Let's go to the next set of slides. So here we go. Now, now we kind of come over to Damon's part of this action. So all of what we've been looking at so far is probably the first couple of episodes, and I would say that 90%, incidentally, 90% of the images that we're seeing are probably in the first 4 episodes. This is probably just the first half of the season. There's 8 episodes this season, in case you missed that, um, and it's quite normal. Previously, House of the Dragon and Game of Thrones tend to only show images from the first half of the season or so. I think that's probably what's happening here as well. So Damon, having been there for the early discussions, his decision, he's heading off to mainland Westeros, to the Riverlands, to meet up with a few allies and gain a toehold. Particularly, he wants to gain Harren, massive castle in the center of Westeros. Now, he has a couple of allies. The most notable is House Blackwood. Now, what we have here is someone, if you're wondering what that sigil is there, that's almost certainly House Bracken that we're looking at here. And this looks very much like it might be a little confrontation between House Bracken and House Blackwood. Those two houses need no excuse to be fighting, regardless of whether there's going to be a civil war. They will be fighting anyway. And a couple of the early skirmishes, Battle of Stonehenge and the Burning Mill, in the book, these happen really very early, and it's basically the Blackwoods on the Brackens. And then Damon comes in on Caraxes and takes up with the army first. I'm pretty sure that's Damon. Obviously, when you see him from behind, the tents are all black, so implication that this is Team Black. I think we're going to see some fighting in the Riverlands first, and there he is, just looking moody and pensive. I quite like that picture, actually. I think that's a pretty good one. But this is the picture that I probably spent the most time staring at. It's about half a second. If you look on the actual trailer, it's about half a second of footage. But that is, and instead that much of the dragon. I think it's Caraxes, because I wasn't focusing in on the dragon. Off in the distance, you can see some towers. That is Harrenhal. And if that's Harrenhal, then the lake here that we're looking at is the God's Eye Lake. And that island just behind the dragon, that is the Isle of Faces. Now, this is the first proper shot we've had of the Isle of Faces, and I'm very excited by it. If you moved on like 2 or 3 frames from this, then you can actually see there are, above the tree line there, they've got a few weirwood trees poking out. You can see their red leaves against the general green foliage backdrop. We don't see anything more than that, but this is setting it up as, I think in this season, it's just going to be something in the background that we can see, and it's definitely there. But we do have one of the only 2 instances we know of anyone being allowed to go to the other places happens in the Dance of the Dragons. That is when Adam Velaryon, we'll talk about him in a moment, Adam Velaryon lands his dragon, flies to the Isle of Faces, lands his dragon there, spends some time, and then flies off again and gets himself killed in the next battle. So he never finds out what actually was going on there. But this is absolutely fascinating. Right. Stephanie Frederick saying, I would have thought it was bigger than that. It's a bit disappointing. Yeah, and Andrew K saying scale looks a bit off with Harrenhal. Barris Aurelius saying seems a bit small. Yeah, I mean the hint is that perhaps maybe this isn't all of the island. Maybe the perspective's a little bit off. But yeah, In my mind, the island is bigger than that, and the lake itself is bigger than that. The lake is actually massive. Now, what follows here are a few quite dark images, but this appears to be. You can see the soldiers move past. Just above his shoulder, you can see a dragon landing. Now, think I think that is probably again a lot of these dragon shots are quite far away, and as good a job as they're doing to make the dragons look quite different. Some of them, particularly when it's dark and rainy, it's quite hard to tell between them. But I think that is Caraxes landing on the top of one of the towers of Harrenhal, and that is Damon arriving there. I certainly see him here. It's raining. You can see you can't actually see that very much, but it's raining. It's dark. He's going round. He's looking. Um, I wouldn't say scared, but very wary, heading around there. This is, let's not forget, this is House Strong, the home of House Strong. And House Strong is where, yes, this was where Harwin Strong was from, who was the of Rhaenyra. Also, the current lord of it is Larys Strong, Master of Whisperers for Team Green. So there's a little bit I can understand some uncertainty there. The text we've got along the bottom here is basically that you don't actually see him saying this, other than he sort of sat on a dragon at one point. He's basically saying our terms are very simple: bend the knee to Rhaenyra, or I'll kill you. And that's basically what this is. So this section, there will be a whole lot. I have to talk about Hartlepool a little bit later because there's quite a lot of other things going on. Alice Rivers will be a but in this section, this is Damon gaining ground in the Riverlands, and that is where we need him to be by about halfway through this season. Again, and Damon, although the interesting point here is that he's not in his armor. So he does it in the book. He kind of sets up base there for a little while, and that is what tempts Team Green out to try and take him on. Okay, so now we've got a few shots of Alicent. Now, I said earlier on, Alicent comes across quite contrite here, quite sad, quite pensive. We get quite a few shots of her in what looks like the sept here. She's lighting a candle. She's talking about, only a few weeks ago, my lord husband was alive and the land was at peace. And this is just like things were better then. Now, lots of people dying, and the realm was at peace. She's got here. This is her, I think, talking to Aegon, her son. But what you'll find, and this kind of segued into it because we don't know exactly where all of these images are going to fit in. But Team Green have a bit of a crisis because they started out completely on the front foot. They were making all the moves. They have the big advantages. They've got the Iron Throne. They've got the sword Blackfire. They've had Aegon anointed by the High Septon. People have seen. They have access to the treasury, the Kingdom Seven Kingdoms treasury, and they also, because they were the only people who knew for a little while that Viserys was dead, they also had the option of doing things before Rhaenyra had a chance to even know what was going on. But they sort of squandered it. And when I say sort of squandered it, they did squander it. They did not gain a strong enough grip on power, and they start to realise this. Now, Aegon, as I say, Aegon has, if we get Alicent, who's gone from being quite strident to actually being quite low-key and pensive. Aegon during this period goes the other way. He came across as being quite a petulant child, basically. In season one, he didn't want the throne. Um, Here he does want the throne now. And in the book, he is getting very frustrated with the slow speed of the campaign. Otto, his grandfather, is the hand of the king, and Otto's approach is basically to write a lot of letters, some of which bear fruit later on, but that's quite a slow approach to how to win the war. Um, and Aegon started getting uh, frustrated of this. So a lot of these slides are probably in and around that time. That's a small council meeting going on there. Um, Otto perhaps realizing what he's done. This here is Alicent talking to Aegon. Now, I think the context here, she's saying you have no idea the sacrifices that were made to put you onto that throne. He is contemplating going into battle himself, and I suspect at this point she's thinking, I don't want to lose. He's not a fighter. He's and I don't want to lose a son. Um, and so she's trying to. I think here she's trying to talk him out of that. But Aegon does get frustrated, and he basically demotes his grandfather, and he says, "Okay, Otto, you're no longer hand of the king," and he makes this guy here hand of the king. So Kristen Cole. So Kristen Cole becomes hand of the king, and we did see him in the earlier trailer. We saw him basically beheading people. That's exactly what he does. He becomes hand of the king. They haul out some people from the dungeons. He says, "This is your last chance. You either bend the knee or I kill you." And some of them bend the knee, some of them don't. And so this is him as hand of the king, enacting the king's justice. And having got his change in strategic direction, this is Aegon's response. He says he's told all the things there, and he's basically said, "Okay, it's war then. We're going to go to war." And he seems, whereas all the shots of Rhaenyra, she seems quite reluctant. Here, Aegon seems very pleased. He wants to go to war. This, I suspect, is probably after Blood and Cheese, and he's talking about payback. And if you remember a moment ago, he's Alicent was sort of trying to tell him, that the sacrifices that went to get the throne, don't waste that now. But he wants to get involved. And here he is talking. This is, I think, Larys Strong that we can sort of see the head and shoulder of. And Aegon's telling him, "I'm as fearsome as any of them. Don't hold me back. I'm going to go to war." And that is obviously, and it's a crown on a helmet. So I think that can't be 100% certain, but I think that's Larys who has got this for him and is basically encouraging him to get right. And that is a long shot. Could happen from anywhere, but I put it here. That is the dragon pit. And what is in the dragon pit? There we have Sunfire. Um, Sunfire, which is Aegon's dragon, beautiful dragon, and quite fearsome. He's saying, "I'm as fearsome as any of them." Sunfire here is quite a fearsome dragon. Now, at which point we will come back to this. At which point it's worth just doing a little bit of dragon maths, because we have Team Green have 4 dragons really. One of them, Tessarion, is all the way down with Deeren. We can talk about him as well a bit later. He does not appear in either of these trailers, but I think he is going to be in the show. So that dragon's out of the way. Dreamfire is Helena's dragon. She is in no fit state to run to war. If she ever wanted do, she certainly wouldn't be doing it now. Which means that at this moment in time, Team Green have two dragons. Vagar, the biggest and most impressive dragon of all, and Sunfire. Uh, Team Black have got a lot more dragons, but none of them are as impressive as Vagar. And most of them are quite young and inexperienced. They've got young and inexperienced riders. So that's, at the moment, the situation is that neither side think that they've got quite enough overwhelming force to just immediately attack. So this is why we've got this kind of like jockeying for position, and the Team Green will be thinking to themselves, well, we need to somehow even up these numbers. So how are we going to do that? Which is where we get the cunning plan, which is what leads to Battle of Rook's Rest. Now, reflective rambling saying, happy and most glorious of name days to our beloved Agreed Weirwood and a belated one to Cloaked One. Two of the best there are. Well, please second that. Happy birthday, Agreed, and a happy birthday to Cloaked One as well, for whenever it was. I hope you had a wonderful time. Actually, you're saying 16th is confirmed date. Yeah, 16th of June is the date that episode 1 will be dropping on. So, what do we have here? Well, we don't know. We don't know which castle this is. We can't be 100% certain. But my best guess is that this is Rook's Rest. There is an army. If you see an army heading up towards it, and what happened in the book is that Christian Cole, having taken over his hands, then decides to go on the attack. He starts attacking a few of the smallish castles and towns just north of King's Landing. Rosby, Duskendale. I mean, these are significant places with castles, but it's not like not the massive castles. It's not Howland Hall. It's not Winterfell, the Erie, something like that. So he takes his army out and starts attacking these one after another. He gets to Rook's Rest, who they are part of Team Black. And the Lord there basically shuts the doors and there's a mini siege, and he sends off for help from Dragonstone. And Rhaenys comes and flies over, and then we get a battle. Now, I'll talk about that battle in just one moment. There are two slides here that I've dropped in here. I don't think, having looked at it, doesn't look like those Merlons are the same as these ones. I think this is the Red Keep, but I included it here because if you see these scorpions that we've got going on here, they are mentioned in this battle. So the Team Green specifically bring with them scorpions to be shooting at dragons. So let's go on to this one here. Now, what you've got here, we've got a lot of different images. That we had a lot of different images of this in the first trailer, and we've got quite a lot from this trailer as well. But I think we can piece together roughly what's going on here. So this is Christian Cole and somebody else. This is a wood or forest. They are riding off to forest. There he is. Look, actually, he's chained the hand of the king around his neck there. So they head into the forest. Why? Well, this is why. You can see there is actually a dragon if you look carefully enough, but from a dragon view, you cannot see who's hiding down in that forest. Now, dragons could down, but somebody like Rhaenys wouldn't do that. So, what seems to be the case is that this army that uh, Kristen Cole has brought up, hiding here in the forest. Rhaenys comes to try and find them, possibly with Baela. Now, this is we don't know where this image comes from, but it's here. We had this image as well in the earlier trailer. It's possible that they've just given her a little bit extra role. It's possible that they included her in this battle, and um, it's also possible, though I will get on to that, that they may have merged her character with that of Nettles. Now, I don't know any of those things, but uh, somewhere along the line, she does seem to get involved in a dragon battle. More shots of dragon battles going on here. And for those who read the books, you know, basically this is a trap. Rhaenys comes out. She thinks she's just there to be fighting an army, but actually, both Aemond on Vhagar and Aegon on Sunfire are there on their dragons to attack. So she's outnumbered, but she takes some a pivotal point. Not just because Rhaenys is an amazing, everybody knows about who she is, but this is and should be the turning point for the people of King's Landing, because they I, I seem to be having a few problems with my internet. So the stream isn't going well on technical grounds. Apologies if the sound's not being going very well, and also I think that was my my Wi-Fi. So apologies for that. Anyway, Battle of Rook's Rest happens. It's quite a turning point, and it's quite a turning point for this guy as well, because as of after this moment, he, spoilers again in the books, but he gets injured, and he gets injured badly. His uh, his dragon gets injured very badly. He gets injured so badly that effective command has to then be passed over to Aemond. So Aemond takes on the role of Lord Protector. And here is Aemond. What they're building up to here is what's almost certainly going to be a season 3 thing, the battle between Aemond and Daemon, the battle over the God's Eye. Now, here we have a few different shots of Aemond talking to Kristen Cole, my uncle. Aemond is a challenge I welcome. They're building, so they started doing this with season 1. They're building it up. He has got the biggest, most impressive dragon in Westeros. Daemon is without doubt the most experienced dragon rider, also on a very fearsome dragon himself, Caraxes. So the two of them fighting is something which we're building up to here. More from there. At which point we're coming towards we've just got a few other random, including one fascinating image I'm really looking forward to sharing with you in just one moment. Here we have he's saying the high towers are moving. Now, this is for those who've been wondering what's going on with Deeren, who's down in Old Town. I think we're going to see that probably in the second half of this. We've been talking through a lot of events here that I think mostly episodes 1 to 4, maybe a bit of episode 5. I think that we will see the Hightowers and Duran start because that army, which is going to be heading from the west and southwest towards King's Landing, that army is going to be hugely important next season. So this is just pointing out that the Hightowers are marching. This is Gawain Hightower, who is played by Freddie Fox. Now, he's an interesting character. In the book, he has a small but important role. He's um, he's based, I think, on the TV show. They said that he's based down in Old Town. In the book, he's come up to King's Landing a lot earlier. He has a role in the Gold Cloaks, um, but it will be interesting to see what they do with him. He's a good actor, and whether they try and introduce him as the wider face of the High Towers. It's possible. That one I've already talked about. Actually, more of Alison. Oh, that one there. It looks a bit weird because it is. That's her in a bath, just sort of like submerging herself in a bath. There's a lot of water themes going on with her. Rainer and Bela, cool one there of Amond, and this one. This is the image I want to leave you with because I think this is from later on. We talked a little bit about the dragons. This is the dragon seeds. I think when we first saw this, we thought, oh, this is just a family dinner here for Team Black. But then you just stop for one moment and have a look. And yes, we've got Rhaenyra at one end. That's a Baylor, I think, there on the right. I think that's Jace there on the left. But these three characters here nearest us. The guy on the right with the lustrous hair and the big beard, that is almost certainly Hugh the Hammer. Person on the left, almost certainly Adam Velaryon. And the person in the middle, we can't really see, but the implication is that that is Ulf White. Now, Andrew K, as you're saying, exactly. Hugh, Ulf, and Adam. So this is why I was speculating a little bit earlier about whether they may merge the character of Nettles with Rhaenyra or Baylor, because I can't see her in this picture. Now, it's possible that if you actually kind of read between the lines about how the dragon seeds happened, and for those who confused about them, who the dragon seeds are, basically on Dragonstone, there were quite a few extra dragons just hanging out, didn't have a rider, and Charis was pushing this cunning plan. Well, what if some other people around here with Valyrian blood, bastards, children perhaps of some Targaryens down the years. Let's see whether we can get any of them bonded with dragons and riding dragons. And they do. They find a lot of people die, incidentally, trying to do this. But if you read what happens, Nettle actually is the last. She's the one who takes the longest. Whereas these other guys, they basically go up and in various ways bond with dragons. She does this over a matter of probably weeks, every day, bringing a sheep to Sheepsteader, building up trust. So it's possible that Nettles just hasn't happened yet. But as of now, there is no Nettles in this picture here. Okay, so Charis Ballerina is saying Nettles is so important in the relationship between Rhaenyra and Daemon. Yes, I agree. I would be very disappointed if she's left out. Archie is saying she hasn't got a dragon yet. I assume yet that's another possibility. Callie Summers saying you can tell they're not royals because of their posture. Yeah, actually, that's a really good point. That's good acting going on there. Yes, very straight backs for all the royals, but the normal people less so. Okay, let's go in Um, just having a look in the chat, I've got some of my patrons that I'm going to go through as well. But I'd like this to be sort of as interactive as possible. Well, my approach to these things, incidentally, is I'm not here trying to sort of like say, "Oh, I've just figured all this out." I want this to be a team effort, really. If you have spotted something that I have not, or if you think, "Oh, I misnamed a dragon" or something like that, just share it because that's the aim is for us all to try and see what we can get from this trailer. Um, uh, Now we've had few people saying that perhaps he's being held back. Northern Tommy, this is Nettles. Northern Tommy saying, "I'm convinced Nettles will be a cliffhanger ending, the introduction at the end of season 2, or she'll come in season 3 or 4." Um, and CPU, it's saying they're probably saving her for a whole introduction. Yeah, that's probably. I mean, that's possibly the way that will be. Erin Sanek saying perhaps Nettles will appear after the midpoint in the season. Um, Yeah. So when I'm saying I think this is only stuff in the first, they haven't said this is only a trailer for the first 4 episodes. It's just that where the story seems to take us seems to imply that's what the story should cover in the first few episodes. We've got quite a lot still to go for the second half of the season, I should say. Let's do a few questions from my patrons, and I'll dip back into the chat. Riley Jack Thompson saying, "Hey Robert, my question is regarding Laris. I love the direction they've taken with him in the show. He really is a bit of a mix with Littlefinger, Varys, and even Bloodwave. It's interesting as his ambitions still seem ambiguous. I'm just wondering how you see his story ending up in the show, and whether or not you think it will be different much from the books." Yeah, interesting. They have changed him, but they've changed his character. They obviously gave him the foot thing, but that's my analysis of that. Incidentally, is this is very much in that of him wanting power over people, and that was his way of getting power over Alicent, and that seems to be the drive for him. This power. Now, in the books, what motivates him is a lot more uncertain. Whose side he's on was a lot more uncertain. I think they've made it a lot clearer whose side he's on here. I think they will roughly keep this the same way. I don't think that he's going to survive. I think that he will. Most of these characters, spoiler alert, most of these characters will die. I don't think that he will survive. Um, Erin's son X saying, "I hope we get more out of Jace's trip to the north than it appears. It seems the trip there is brief or shown in brief." Um, yeah, it's quite an interesting one in terms of his trip to the north. So he certainly seems to be back. I think that's him here in this picture that I've kept up here for the moment. So he certainly seems to come back. So it's not going to take long. He seems to be there at the beginning and then a bit less. So I'm thinking we're talking about maybe 3 episodes. That's my kind of instinct. And what can they fit into 3-ish episodes? Well, not not everything. But the fact is that the only thing that has to come out from his trip to the north is the Pact of Ice and Fire, the agreement that gets Starks on board. That's the only thing that has to happen. They've clearly decided to go to the war, so I think that we will see something. That implication has to be we're going to see some connection in there with the Aegon's prophecy. So I would guess we're not going to get as much about Winterfell. Alexandra Vladimets, thank you so much for the super sticker. I hugely appreciate that. Cast Ballerina saying, "Is that Harold Westerling in the background of this shot? He looks bald, bearded, and white cloaked." Well, again, I'm going to let other people, perhaps with better eyesight. I'll see whether I can zoom in myself. I'm not sure if that is. He Graham McTavish who's playing the character, is in season 2. I just don't think we've had a clear shot of him yet. Um, Keegan's High saying or asking, is Cannibal going to make an appearance? Cannibal is a dragon, a wild dragon who is on Dragonstone and basically is not going to be ridden by anyone and does attack randomly other dragons as well, hence Cannibal. Now, my instinct is that probably they won't introduce Cannibal this time around, or if they do, only fleetingly, because they will want to keep this. If they're introducing at least 3 new dragon riders, at least 3 new dragons, then I think they'll probably think that's enough. They will. They might want to introduce another one next season as well. So if Cannibal does appear and get a mention, it might be next. Andrew K saying Condell has mentioned that he was excited to show us the wild dragons eventually. Yeah, okay, eventually is good. So maybe that's going to be next season if it's an eventually. Um, Callie Summers saying maybe Nettles is in the is in this season. Mystery girl taking sheep to an ominous cave, rides out on a dragon at the end once the cast has shrunk. Yeah, I mean they might do. So we haven't seen this. They could handle this in a number of different ways. They could, yeah, that could easily work. That Rhaenyra thinks she's got her team now. Here's this meal. We've got our team of dragon seeds, but secretly there's somebody else who's forming a bond with a dragon as well. Yeah, they could definitely do that. Ellen Son X saying, I think that's one of the white cloaks who saw fealty to Rhaenyra at the end of last season. Quite possibly. I was hoping there'd be people with a better zoom than me on this one. Right, let's go. Is that? I think that's me caught up in the chat at the moment. Let's do another question or two from my patrons. George R.R. Tolkien saying, salutations to you too, sir. I was wondering if you thought by the end of the season we would get to see Aemond take his brother's place on the throne while he is recovering from his wounds, or do you think they'll finish the season before that? We should see it this season. We've got if we've got the Battle of Rook's Rest, which I'm guessing is going to be somewhere in the middle of the season. Season episode 4 or 5 would be my guess. If we've got that there, then that's when Aegon will get his wounds and his injuries, and the next episode will be what we're going to do now. if Aegon's out of action, who's going to be leading the fight? And that's when Aemond would. I mean, he literally takes the crown, but he doesn't call himself king. He calls himself, I think, Prince Regent and Lord Protector or something along those lines. But he is basically from then on, he is the king in all but name. Question from Travis. My question is about what I would call the sea smoke paradox. In the show, Laenor is explicitly alive, but a recently released cast list shows that Adam of Hull will be in the new season. In the book, at least, he became the rider of sea smoke, if my memory is correct. How do you think the show will handle this? Will Laenor return just to be killed off? Will Adam's character be fused with another dragon seed? Will Adam be given a different dragon? Will they allow sea smoke to be bonded to more than one rider? Will they address the issue at all? Make it make sense? Well, I think it's the show to make it make sense on this one. I don't think. Let's. Hang on, I'll get rid of that picture for them. I think it's the show to make it make sense, in as much as they have created this problem for themselves, and they will be aware of it. This isn't a completely um, strange thing that they suddenly go, "Oh, well, hang on a moment. What are we going to do now?" No, they will have been when they made that change. They will have been aware of what the implications would be later on. So I can only assume that they have, and probably George R. R. Martin has been consulted on this. They could just ignore it. I have a feeling we saw in the first trailer we had what looked like a confrontation between Rhaenyra and Adam Velaryon, Adam of Hull, about sea smoke. And I can only assume what that is her trying to work through if it's even possible. And then as well, that's my dead husband's dragon. I think she would have got past this idea of, you know, um, uh, well, he's obviously not actually dead on the TV show, but I think she would have got past this idea of, well, we can't be handing out dragons to other people because we care about who used to have that dragon. I think it will be a more can this actually work issue. So um, they could either ignore it completely, they could leave it a mystery, which I think is my best guess of what they could do. And when I say leave it a mystery, they could just simply do something along the lines, well, I don't think this will work with sea smoke. I'm not allowed to say why. I can't say why I didn't think this will work. And then it's like, oh, it did work. Um, and then maybe that will lead to questions of, does this mean that he's actually dead? Or does this mean that a dragon, if the bond has been broken by the rider, that the dragon can be just leave it open? And they can ask those questions, they just do not know. But I don't think that they're going to give him a different dragon. I think that they will play fair with that, is my guess. Let's give a quick flick through the chat. Andrew K saying, I could see Aegon II being one of the stronger acting performances this season and going forward. Yeah, well, certainly this season, I think this is the big season for Aegon II. Season 4 might be quite a big one. But the second half of the season, in the books, then he's basically out. He's asleep 9 out of 10 hours. 90% of the time, he's got milk of the poppy. He's got dream wine. He's there's too much pain. He can't cope with it. So it, his first season should be quite strong. The second half, he's probably going to be quite unwell. Commander Ray saying it's going to be sad every time a dragon dies as we get into the dance, the greatest tragedy of this period. Yep, it will be sad, particularly if we get to know some of these dragons a lot better individually as opposed to just the generic dragon. Question from Maura Lee. In season 2, we will probably see Jacaerys go north. What is the Pact of Ice and Fire, and what was the Pact's political significance to the story? So the Pact, I mentioned the Pact of Ice and Fire actually earlier, so thank you. This was basically an agreement to marry off. I can't remember the exact details of this one now, but it was Jacaerys' son to when he has one to his daughter. I think that's what it was. But basically, it was uniting. It was a marriage between House Stark and House Targaryen. Now, this did not happen, obviously. So, whereas a marriage pact was forged, this is often seen within the community as a sort of a bit of foreshadowing of so there was an agreement to marry the two families together, and this would work better as a foreshadowing of Rhaegar and Lyanna. Obviously, is if that agreement is made in the context of something to do with the prophecy. that they think that the Starks and the Targaryens should be working together against the threat from the north. Um, so that would work quite well, I think. Maura, you also asked about the Dragon Siege, which I've just been covering. And a question didn't I didn't actually note down who this was from, so apologies. One of my patrons, I've got your question. I forgot to note down your name next to it, but it's saying, "Good evening, Robert. The show did not have Harold Westling old age like in the books. Had they gone down that route, he would have died around episode 3 or 4 of season 1. I get keeping his character for the first season, and Graham McTavish is a great actor, but what do you think they have planned for him moving forward? If he's supporting Rhaenyra, he would have arrived before Eric." Yeah, this is an interesting one, because we haven't really seen him in these pictures. Um, the what I was wondering at the time of season 1 was whether they were basically merging his character with Stefan Darklin, um, who tries to, I can't remember which dragon it is, but tries to bond with a dragon and dies. So he tried to be a dragon seed, or claimed he was a dragon seed, and failed. So they may go down that route. They may have him arrive. They can come up with some excuse for why he wasn't there earlier, but then he arrives, and then he decides he wants to try bonding with a dragon, and that's a way to use his undoubted acting ability. Otherwise, they might just keep him as the sort of the opposite of Kristen Cole. So Kristen Cole is he becomes Hand of the King, but he's the head of the Kingsguard, and he is young, he's impetuous, he's harsh, he's lots of other things. And if we have uh, Graham McTavish as, Harold Westerling, but the character that they create as being a sort of an opposite, slower, more considered, less likely to rush into things, and having some moral principles, that might be quite a nice way to kind of showcase a little bit more of Kristen Cole. Luna Cascade. On the last photo release, we saw Alicent looking out over a body of water. In this trailer of what that could be. No, we didn't. So this was frustrating. I did mention this a little bit as we went through these ones. I've sort of mentally added it to this bank of images we have of Alicent being sad and pensive. So in this set of pictures, we have her in the bath, just sort of like going down underwater, letting the water go over her head. We also have pictures of her in what looks like a sept, lighting candles. We had that picture of her gazing out over a lake. I think these are just, at the moment, unless there's a whole extra storyline that we're not aware of, these are just different images of her being sad and pensive about what's going on. The Where that lake was, and my best guess is still that's just a dream. Raven's Oath. Do you think we'll see Sarah Snow when Jace arrives? Do you think the showrunners will want to avoid muddying the waters with the notion of Targ Stark, Bow Chicka Wow Wow? It's actually written down like that in the question. Bloodline mixing Dragon Winged Wolf. It would not surprise me if we see the character. I think probably they won't want to confuse things too much. They seem to be setting him up as quite a good character, as in quite a morally upright character. There were a few little touches which you may or may not have noticed And season one, there was that. If you remember, there was that um, meal that everybody was at, and yeah, there were a few seconds when everybody was happy. And in that, he dances with Helena, but just as an aside, he kind of asks permission from um, his fiance. Do you mind if I do this? Which just makes him appear quite gallant, makes him appear quite a good guy. So I think if that's the kind of thing that suggests to me that they're wanting him to come across quite well, and so him having some mad passionate affair with somebody who he then flies away from and never sees again, that doesn't seem really in character. So they might show us the character, but I don't think that there will be some kind of torrid love affair going on. Let's go to a question from the Ninja Robbo. More of a meta question. This: how do you picture characters in your head different since watching the show? Did you read all the books before seeing any of the adaptations, books that I covered before seeing any of the adaptations? Did any of your head visions or voices change? E.g., for me, I watched Witcher season one, then got through most of the audiobooks before playing the game, so I have a weird mix of game, show, and my own visuals. But they all sound like who's the guy who does the audiobooks. I find this fascinating, actually. Slight digression away from the trailer, but I'll come back to the trailer in just 1 second. Because, yeah, most of the time I kind of actually reads the book first and then I'll see the TV show. And for Game of Thrones, I think I said this before, but for Game of Thrones itself, I had this kind of weird mix of I watched season one of the TV show, then loved it, read all of the books, and then back and watched. I was ready for season two and watched the rest of it, which meant that some characters I actually have the character in my mind. Tyrion looks like Tyrion, even though he doesn't in the book. When I'm reading the book, he looks like Peter Dinklage, even though the book character does not look like that. So that's kind of like that got stuck in my head. But for the most part, it's most of the characters who were introduced from season two onwards. I had the book character rather than the TV show character. For House of the Dragon, yes, I'd obviously read the book. The question is whether or not any characters are hugely different. I mean, I think the one which is most different in terms of looks is Laris Strong. For me, he looks very different. I've got nothing against the actor. I think he's doing a fine job. But that's not the image of the character that I have in my head. Just on the Witcher, Peter Kenny does a fantastic job reading the audiobooks. Whenever he reads Geralt in the audiobooks, I have no idea what this is what he's doing, but it always sounds a bit like Sean Bean to me. And I don't know whether he's intending to do a Sheffield accent or not, but in my head, Geralt has got a Sheffield accent. Commander Ray saying, which characters are you most looking forward to seeing? And what are your expectations for how they will be portrayed in the show versus the book? Well, there's a couple of characters I'm really looking forward to this season. Cregan Stark is one of them. I'm fascinated by that. Another is Alice Rivers, who I comes across incredibly strongly later on in the story. But it's quite a slow start. So I do not know how she's going to come across here, whether they're going to give her quite a slow start. Basically, when I say quite a slow start, is that she's there, she's in Harrenhal, and we're told that she's possibly a little bit magical, and she somehow manages to avoid being killed. But it's only later on that she starts allegedly performing this huge and powerful magic. So I'll be intrigued whether they introduce her straight away as this magical character or whether they slowly ease us into it like she's a little bit mysterious. Bertarelli is saying, "I do hope we see Alice Rivers this season." Yeah, I think I heard that they did a casting for it, so I think we will see her. It's just a matter of how they introduce her. Whether it's just a here's a character that we'll come back to later, or they'll actually create more of a plot line than there was between her and Damon, because that's Damon. It looks like it's going to be at Harrenhal for a few episodes, as he should be for a few episodes in this season. Um, he doesn't have many interactions that we know of with her, but maybe they'll build that up into something bigger. Um, uh, Carl saying Geralt of Rivia and Sheffield. Yep, it was what he's like in my head. There's no way around that. Um, let's. Oh, incidentally, actually, just while I'm thinking of it, in The Witcher, if you're a Witcher fan, there's another animated story that they're making for The Witcher, um, which is based on one of the short stories. It's going to come out towards the end of this year, perhaps Christmas. Sirens of the Deep, and the the voice of Geralt is going to be done by the guy who voices him in The Witcher 3. So if you're used to that voice, then that will be the voice that we get. Um, uh, Sirens of the Deep when that comes out. Question from Ranabe Mitra saying, in the Blacks trailer, we see Damon and Caraxes engaged in the night skies under heavy rain. Is this supposed to be what Fire and Blood calls the taking of Stone Hedge or the capture of Harrenhal? In both cases, he is said to have made the respective lords surrender to him, but yet we see a beheading beside the Harrenhal in the original teaser. My suspicion is that since trailers typically take out snippets from first episodes only, all these data snippets relate to Harrenhal alone, since this was the original starting base for these transmissions. Yeah, so I think we're going to see an episode or two of him in the Riverlands. We'll see the Blackwood Bracken interaction, which I'm quite enjoying. I think this is as well as a kind of a nod to the fans, because Ryan knows that we love the Blackwoods and the Brackens, and uh, giving us a little bit of that, I think, goes down well with the fandom. But also, it adds in uh, what otherwise could just be here's the Targaryens and the High Towers and the really big and important families fighting each other, and actually showing a lot more sort of ground level what's going on, introducing a few more Riverlands houses. So I think what we will see is we will see an episode or two of him with an army, with the Blackwoods, whether we actually see either of the Battle of Burning Mill and Stonehenge, I don't know. Um, but I think after that, it will then turn to Harrenhal. So the detail of exactly how they take Harrenhal, I have a feeling, just instinct from what we've seen, they're going to make that more of a thing. If you remember back to when George R. R. Martin, I think this was in about November, he came over to London for a couple of weeks, and visited the studios. I think it's Leavesden Studios where they and he had a picture taken on the House of the Dragon set in the studios, which was from a Harrenhal, which I think shows that they've built a lot for this, and they're going to use it, because if they're building a big proper set, that means that they're using it, and we get those images that we had in this set of trailers, where he's sort of looking around cautiously. This isn't just going to be a matter of him landing with a dragon, accepting surrender, and then just like sitting around for a while. There's going to be something added to this mix, maybe a bit more resistance than he's used to, or he was expecting. Um, maybe it'll be Alice Rivers thing. I'm not sure, but there's going to be an extra layer, I'm sure, to Harrenhal. Anonymous saying, just joined and I see a certain preference for sides on Robert's green screen. Yeah, I mean, um, it, it was just a good picture. I liked it, to be honest. Um, Carl Karsnark saying he's simply displaying rightful monarch of Westeros. I see no issue. I think that's an attitude a lot of people will be taking. Um, Miranda Mitra saying, we finally see the Isle of Faces, and most interestingly for me, the slight shades of red leaves against the major forest of weirwoods on the Isle. More recently, the 24 official calendar had a picture by Justin Sweet with Rhaegar and Lyanna against a green weirwood at the Isle of Faces. Amanda from the Disputed Land speculates that this is evidence of the weirwoods in Westeros also being kind of originally green trees due to leaves being red, not green. Do you think this might pose a problem in the fandom soon? I.e., we assume that the Isle has green weirwoods and not the typical red-leafed ones, but here House of the Dragon shows us some red-leafed weirwoods on the Isle of Faces. The Isle of Faces in the trailer. So I don't know what the speculation from Amanda. I've always got time for what Amanda speculates. But I don't know what that is. I think purely in terms of the TV show, they're going to keep this simple. Weirwoods have got red leaves, and I think that that's any other complications around the side. They're not going to go with that. They know that their audience is massive, and the vast majority of them don't want to dig into that level of detail. If it's something that even we aren't 100% certain about, then the average viewer certainly won't care about either. So on the show, weirwood trees will always be red-leaved, white bark. So that's there. As for in fandom and the implication of um, the image on the calendar. Now, the calendar is an interesting one. If you've never come across them, they have a sort of a weird, I would call it semi-canon, but it's not quite semi-canon, in as much as these get commissioned by George R. R. Martin. There's an official calendar every year. He tells us who it is, which artist it is who's going to be doing, and the artist does all of the pictures for it. And because they're sort of official George R. R. Martin, Song of Ice and Fire calendars, then they always get a little bit of extra notice about what the pictures are of. Now, there are sometimes some bits that George R. R. Martin will tweak or suggest, but he doesn't do kind of a full critique of every, as far as we're aware, he doesn't do a full critique of every or request specific things. This is down to the artist to do things as they want. An example from this last, which may or may not match up with what we know. So an example from the last one was we had, and I can't remember the artist, this might have been just this week as well, but a picture of Starfall, which is the home of House Dane. And it looks pretty much like we would expect it. It's an island with a sort of castle thing on top of it and a very high tower, pretty much in the middle. Now, we know the story was that Shara Dane threw herself from the highest tower of Starfall into the water. Now, just looking at that picture, that wasn't therefore possible because it's not by the water. Leaving aside whether you think she actually did it or not, if you think it's a made-up story, then they would not have made it up if the tower was not next to the water, because then people would immediately be able to see through that as a lie. So, does this mean that we therefore have to completely change our idea about the layout of what's going on in Starfall? No. This is just an artist who's drawn something that looks cool, and George R. R. Martin didn't have the time or inclination to be saying, "Oh no, can you actually change that because of this very minor detail?" So I think I come around to the fact that yes, there can be interesting things in these pictures. For me, the most interesting thing in that picture was the fact that George R. R. Martin was clearly happy for there to be a picture of Rhaegar and Lyanna together looking happy. And that, I think, was the much bigger issue for me than the details of what the mortgage tree looked like, um, because that's yet more evidence of R plus L equals J. Um, let's go to a question from Catherine First. I'm curious as to which insights into dragon lore we will get this season. What do you predict? I'm still surprised at the speed with which Vhagar switched allegiances to Aemond in season one. This seems to imply that the relationship between humans and dragons is a singular dyadic one, um, not between a specific dragon and specific families or alliances. How will this play out in the coming season? Dragons in Fire and Blood seem to have no problem hurting humans and other dragons alike. Will it be the same in the show? Well, the last bit, yes, I think it'll be the same. We've already talked about what is potentially the biggest issue, which is the issue of sea smoke. But in terms of sort of dragon lore, the thing I'm looking for the most is this notion of control over dragons, because this was a huge thing in season one. Now, we've had a few. There are a few moments where this has happened in Song of Ice and Fire. Dany clearly can't really control Drogon when she climbs onto the back of Drogon and lots of dragons. You have Arya Targaryen who can control Balerion, the Black Dread. So we've had a few instances of this. But here we had not one but two dragons completely ignoring what their riders wanted them to be doing in the Battle of the Ship Bay. That happened in both ways. So that is a hugely important thing, because if it turns out that actually most dragons don't obey what they're supposed to be doing, that changes a huge amount, because what we've had written about them seems to imply that they do what they're told. Is it just when they go into or if you're an inexperienced rider, or is it a matter of when they go into battle or something like that? What's the rules around this? That's the thing that I'm trying to understand a little bit more, because that didn't come across as just a one-off. It came across as that, oh, okay, so this is actually what dragons are like. Andrew K saying, the more I think of it, the Dragon Bond seems a bit sinister. You look at the abrupt changes of loyalty between Daemon's father and Lena. He spent decades about Vhagar. Yes, absolutely. Let's go to a question from Diego Godoy saying, Hola, Robert. Hola. What are your thoughts about the format of the trailer released by HBO, making one for the blacks and one for the greens? Are they trying to keep somewhat of a balanced support from the viewers? Well, I find this fascinating. I liked it. It's, I suppose the first thing to say. I liked having two different trailers that we can look through. If I'm being honest, the difference between them, they could have pushed this a lot more, because they're obviously you'd have to choose, pick a side, all that kind of stuff. It didn't come across. Neither of them came across as being completely. This is setting out the perspective of Team Black, or this is setting out the perspective of Team Green, trying to put them in positive light. They didn't quite go down that far down that route. What I would be fascinated is whether they are proactively wanting to push that even further. Do they actually and actively want people to be picking sides, or was this just like a fun little marketing thing for this time around? Because, as I say, the book readers overwhelmingly Team Black. People who've come into this quite fresh, I suspect, are a lot more both sides about it. They'll be going, well, I understand why Alicent thought that she was in the right, and I think that they will probably be looking at Team Green going, well, they've got some bad guys on their side. There's also some good people like Helena over there as well. One of the most good characters amongst the Targaryens. And if we get introduced to Diran, then maybe he comes across quite well as well. So I think that people who come to this fresh might have a lot more of a kind of balanced view than a lot of people who read the books at first. Um, Bereswell is saying, honestly, I'm more excited for the Duncan Egg show. I'm excited. I really am. I really like this trailer. I do. Um, it's always hard. It's kind of like the opportunity cost thing. I do wonder whether doing it in these two sides like this, they did kind of miss a trick in kind of setting out the overall narrative. I think that the argument would be the overall narrative is this is about two different sides. Are they going to take? I mean, probably overthinking this, but hey, what's this channel for if it's not overthinking? Are they going to take this approach actually into how the show is structured? Are we going to get an episode where we're largely looking at Team Black, and then another episode where we're largely looking at Team Green? So are we going to get episode 1 going to be spending a lot of time here focusing in on the family mourning the death of Viserys, and then Jacaerys heading up north, and the return of Corlys and things, and Daemon. Are we going to have all of that and nothing from Team Green, and then we shift over to the other side, and then suddenly we get all of these kind of like uncertainty. Alicent's there going, well, I'm feeling a bit bad about all of this, and we're starting to see things from their perspective, and then Blood and Cheese happens, and it's like, oh, the horror, and we're starting to feel quite sympathetic for that. Are we going to have it that stark, or are they going to mix it up? I think they're just going to mix it up. So my instinct is that this is just a little marketing ploy for this time, and they're not going to go any further. Duncan Egg, no, we haven't got a release date yet. A couple of people in the chat asking about that. The filming, I think I last heard they were going to start filming around June, actually. So when this comes out, they're going to start filming there. So expect over the course of the next couple of months or so, expect some casting announcements. Because once they actually start filming, then people will discover anyway. Expect a few casting announcements coming through. Last I heard, that was only going to be 6 episodes, so they'll take to film it, but they'll probably aim to film through most of the rest of the year. And then HBO tend to be relatively swift in terms of post-production, so it could be summer of next year. My best guess is the second. Question from Zibo. Which new characters and locations do you think we'll see this season? And are there any you're particularly excited for? For me, it's Cregan. Are there any characters you think they might cut or combine? Game of Thrones. I'm a bit worried we might not get Diran. I think we will get Diran. Diran is down in Old Town. Now, recently, I have seen dotted about here and there a few. I don't think they're leaks. I think they're allowed the sort of the original scripts for House of the Dragon season 1, which includes a lot of things that got trimmed out in the edit. A lot of references to Diran. Now, some conspiracy theorists said, well, this means that they haven't. They've decided they're going to cut him. I think that just means they didn't want to confuse it. They're introducing a whole new load of Targaryens, and they thought, well, we'll take out that one extra person we never actually meet, and we'll bring him in next time. So it's important for the story going forward, particularly for season 3 that the Hightower army does happen, and that they've got a dragon and Deeren. So that's quite important in the story going forward. Uh, it wasn't necessary to talk about that in season 1. I think it's necessary to introduce it in season 2, and maybe we'll get as far as seeing a couple of battles with them. But it's really in season 3 when we get Tumbleton and things like that. That's when it actually becomes um, im- a big plot point. So, sort of talking about stuff around in circles here. Apologies. I don't think they've cut him. I think that we will see him. Um, New locations. What that does mean, though, I think that we're not going to see much of Old Town. I would have loved to see some of Old Town, a bit more of Old Town, but the whole point there is that this is them leaving Old Town to head out on the road. So I don't think we're going to see much of that. I think we will see a lot more of Harrenhal. Um, I mean, the Wall. Yes, we will see. I hope we get to see the Erie, um, but I mean, weirdly, the one I'm most looking forward to is probably Rook's Rest, because this is a completely new castle. We've seen these other places before. This is just a average mid-sized castle. So I'd love to see what they do with that. Something that doesn't look as if it's hugely amazing and impressive, but is just standard for Westeros. So it's exciting, but that's one thing I'm really looking forward to. I've got a few more questions, but now is the time. I would love if you're here in the chat. Could you just show a little bit of love to the moderators who do wonderful work? Thank you very much, moderators. You are brilliant. So thank you. One other thing, just while I'm doing vague announcements, um, if you do want to support this channel, the best way to do that is through Patreon. There's a link down there. I see that because it's an introduction to me saying thank you to my patrons. I can't do what I do without your support, so thank you very much. Barris Aurelius saying one scene in the area is all we need. I hope they give it to us. Yeah, that would be fantastic. Although, of all the sets that they had in Game of Thrones, I think the area is one of the more disappointing ones, because it's so extraordinary in the book. This pinnacle that's going up, beautiful white towers on the top of this treacherously high mountaintop, basically. And what we had on the TV show looked cool. The sky cells looked cool, but it wasn't quite what was in there. So yeah, I was of all the things I was most disappointed in there. And just so everyone's sort of vaguely aware, they are trying to keep things similar. This isn't a complete reboot, so we're going to do things looking very different. As much as is possible, they're trying to keep things looking the same as they did in Game of Thrones. They've done a few tweaks, obviously, with things like the Iron Throne, but the idea is that as much as is possible, they're going to try and keep that consistency going on. Let's go to a question from Rhaenyra. When I read Fire and Blood, sorry, I'm just slightly thrown. I've written Rhaenyra here. I'm just trying to work out whether that's one of my patrons going by the name of Rhaenyra, or whether I literally just typed Rhaenyra there because this is a question about Rhaenyra. I think it may well be, in which case, whichever patron this is, I do apologise for not cutting and pasting. That's the second one I did that, not cutting and pasting across the name. When I read Fire and Blood, I remember Rhaenyra not having a particularly active role early on because of her grief for Visenya and Lucerys. Do you think the show will have her in more of an active role? So I think this is quite interesting because we did see what looked like her on Dragonback in the earlier trailer. Here, she does seem to be spending much more of her time in Dragonstone. I think they will sort of compromise this a bit, not having her as like being in the front line of all these battles. They've got other people that they are going to be doing that with, but by having her be more proactive and leading more than she did in the book. So you're absolutely right. There was a period after the death of Lucerys, and she lost baby daughter as well. She'd sort of disappeared for a while, and we get Corlys Velaryon basically taking over control. Damon heads over to Harrenhal. He's doing his own thing, and she's not really providing the guidance and leadership. So I think that we won't see that. We definitely didn't see that. She was clearly traumatized and affected by the loss of her child, but not as much as it seems to suggest in the book. And I think that they will probably have her out and about a bit more. So searching for the body, Ceres's body, I think they'll have her on Dragonback looking for that with Syrax. I think that probably she will be, if we do get as far as, say, the Fall of King's Landing, I think that she will play a front and center role there. But they're not going to make her kind of like the war leader. So sort of a step up from what she was doing, but not all the way. Luna Cascade saying, what do you think is going on when we see Baylor on Dragonback? Well, it's an interesting one because she doesn't in the book. She doesn't get involved in battles here, so it looks as if they've just decided they wanted to beef up her role, which is can do that. That's not a problem. I suspect that she will see her there in the Battle of Rook's Rest. I think that this won't just be the kind of 2-on-1 dragon battle that we read in the books, but she will come along with Rhaenys, and she will escape, which slightly changes the shape of the battle. Maybe it makes it slightly makes it take longer. If you read it, I was reading it this morning actually. If you read the Battle of Rook's in the book, there's a real amount of build up, but in terms of the actual dragon fight, it's described in about a paragraph. Is that she arrives there on Mellie's. She realizes that this is a trap. She could have tried to escape. She doesn't. She just goes straight for them. Mellie's knocks its jaws around Sunfire. Vhagar comes down on top on both of them, and they all go crashing into the ground. That's it. The end. Now, I have a feeling that they will make it slightly cooler than that. So, does that mean we might have another dragon involved? Possibly. There is, and I covered this earlier, there's this outside possibility that they're trying to merge her character with that of Nettles. They might do that. But one other thing that I've got in the back of my mind is that I know Ryan Condor sort of said there were 2 set pieces in this season, which he had been really looking forward to. The implication that these are sort of battle scenes of some kind. The first, I think, is clearly Rook's Rest. I'd be intrigued what the second one is because we've not seen it at all in any of the trailers. I don't know whether we're going to be seeing Battle of the Gullet, which would be a sea-based battle involving dragons, which would be absolutely epic. It should appear, if they're going at the sort of pace that they seem to be going at, then it should appear at, I don't know, episode 7 or something like that. But I've not seen any hint of it yet so far. Maybe, therefore, they will make something like the capture of King's Landing if they go with that this season. Maybe they'll make that more of an event I don't know. It's an intriguing one. One thing I will say is, do not necessarily. They have been tweaking the edges of the story quite a lot. Do not necessarily think that things have to happen in the same exact order as they do in the book. So something like the Battle of the Gullet, it made absolute perfect sense when it happened in the book, but they could, with a few small changes, they could put that after the fall of King's Landing. Yeah, just as easily. There's no issue there. So don't think. And similarly, the Battle of the Cardinal Twins, we know when that happened in the book. They could put that pretty much at any point in the season, and it would, with a few little tweaks, it could still work. So what they're obviously wanting to do is each episode to work in and of its own right. And good writing means that in a given episode, then the themes from one thing match up with things from other things happening at the same time. It may well be that they want to be doing the Cargill twins thing to sort of echo something else that's happening in the story, um, and therefore change the time. So don't think that it's set. The timings of these things are set. Um, Andrew Cade talked about Baylor saying it's more firsthand the impact and pain for Baylor and could give her more motivation for later actions against Aegon the Second and Sunfire. Yeah, that's true. We're both so Baylor will become an important character later on. At the moment, she's not that central, but they could build things up now that will allow her later actions. Yeah, you're right. Luna Cascade saying maybe Baylor had just heard about Jace's fling with Sarah. Maybe. Martin S is saying, hi, Robert. Nice House of the Dragon trailers today. I'm going on a trip to Andalusia in a couple of days, so I'm busy preparing, but I am listening. Well, hi, Martin. It's great to see you anyway, and I hope you have a fantastic trip. Andrew K saying, I think the Battle of the Gullet will be season 3, could even be 2 episodes. Yeah, it could. The implications of Battle of the Gullet are huge. So I mean, if I had to guess, then I would say, yeah, they'll push it back into season 3. Curtis Frank saying one up blood and cheese for like the big set piece thing. That will be one of the most impactful things, but I think as a set piece, no, I don't. That it should be. In order for it to work, it should be very low key and actually quite low budget. They should be able to run this just in a small close set with a few actors. That's really all it needs. It doesn't need any special effects or anything. So it shouldn't be too much of a challenge. Okay, there was a couple more questions from our patrons. Kelly Summers saying, I thought it was really cool they dropped 2 trailers with opposing perspectives. I think they're trying to balance both sides to make them seem equally legitimate. Are you team black or team green? Both personally, and who has the better claim? Well, in terms of that, I mean, I tend not to take the sides of it. My overall view, I'll answer your question properly in just one moment, don't worry. But my overall view is that I think that the big message of this is that everybody loses. And as is often the case with this George R. R. Martin's world here, we're supposed to be looking at this and going, the whole thing is pretty horrific. So that's my sort of overall picture, overall position. And so, like, cheering on a particular team and saying, yeah, they're great. Both sides perform some pretty horrific crimes as we're getting into it. So I don't think that I'm particularly pro either. In just purely in terms of who's got the better claim, then I personally think it's pretty clearly Rhaenyra. They have muddied things a little bit with the Alicent thing, but that fundamentally was a misunderstanding. She misunderstood what he was talking about. So, yeah. in both book and on screen, then Team Black have got the claim. You're also saying it was a brief shot, but it looks like we're going to the Wall this season, not just to Winterfell. If it's not just heavy winter at Winterfell, what do you think we might see at the Wall in this part of the timeline? Well, it will be a heavy winter because the idea here is that we've got winter is coming literally here, and the whole point about winter wolves is that these are in the north. Winter gets so bad that some people basically sacrifice themselves for others, and we've only got enough food to be seeing this amount of people through the winter. I will sacrifice myself by sort of heading off and hoping to forage off the land or doing a thing. And basically, all Starkers said, send me all those guys, and we'll head down south. And none of them are expecting to return. So they all head down south, expecting to be dying in battle, which confuses and frustrates them when it turns out they don't really have a battle to fight when they get there. But this is a hard winter. They don't. It doesn't look that bad yet, to be honest, from the couple of shots that we've got. But it will turn into a hard one. In terms of what, I mean, whether we see Winterfell at all, I mean, because if they're at the Wall, then how, unless they're flying on dragon back, which I guess is possible, then we shouldn't be seeing Winterfell as well. What might they see at the Wall? I think if I had to pick one thing in terms of extra lore that I'm expecting them to do, it's going to be something to do with the others, the White Walkers, and the Starks and the Targaryens. I think we will see something. I don't know what. I think they won't be able to resist having introduced this idea of Aegon's prophecy, having the Targaryens and Starks meet. They will get some exchange of knowledge or agreeing to work with each other for the same objective, something along those lines. And the fact that they have changed this, so make no mistake, this is a deliberate change. They know what Winterfell is. They know people would have been very happy if Jacaerys went up to Winterfell and we got to see Winterfell again. That would be fine. But they've clearly decided they want to go to the Wall. That's a change. So that's not something that happened in the books, and they would have done that for a reason, not just because they think it's cool, because Winterfell itself would be cool. It's because they want to introduce some extra law or something along those lines. So that's, if I had to pick one thing that I think we're going to get something like that on, it's going to be that. Let's go to. Actually, Callie, you also asked about how much of a game changer was it for the Greens to have Vhagar? Absolutely, completely changed everything. What if Vhagar was with the Blacks? So if Vhagar had not been a part of the equation, or if Vhagar had belonged to the Blacks, then I don't think there's much doubt that you just had Sunfire plus Dreamfire, who may or may not take part anyway, because that's Helena's dragon. And if you've only really got Sunfire there, I think that the easiest decision on the planet for the Black Council, the first thing that they do is go, well, we've got Caraxes, we've got Melis, we've got half a dozen other smaller dragons. Let's just go over there. We'll take. We can gang up on one dragon, and Cyrax as well, of course. It simply would not be an issue for them. So the fact that Vhagar was on Team Green was what kept the war going, basically, because otherwise Team Black would be taking Landing straight away. And the moment that Vagar leaves, if you notice, the moment that Vagar leaves, that's when Team Black decide they can attack. Last question from my patrons. Happy to pick up a few more questions in the chat. A last question from my patrons saying, "Hi Robert," or Corvus Corax saying, "Hi Robert, where do you predict this season will end?" Now this is something that I've said for a long time. I know where I would end this season. I think this works best at a very high level. If we've got season 1 was like the build up to war, season 2 is basically the collapse of Team Green, and Team Black taking control of King's Landing. That's where I would end it. I would end it at some cool point where Rhaenyra perhaps comes in and sits on the Iron Throne, or they deal with Alicent, something along those lines. That would be the point you can end it, and then you could quickly flash over to Aemond and Vagar, and he's like shaking his fist or something like that. This isn't over, and you see the massive army from the high towers with the dragon heading up from the southwest from the Reach. That would be a good place for me to end this season. And then the next season takes us from Rhaenyra having claimed the throne in King's Landing to being carried out of King's Landing. So see Team Green collapsing, then we have Team Black collapsing, and then season 4 is, and now everything's just going terrible everywhere. That works really well for me as a structure. And I still think, and I should probably clarify in case it's not clear, I have no inside line on this. I've not had anyone telling me any bits of information about what's going on here, so I know as much as you do. But I still think that's a reasonably good guess as to where it's going to finish. If they don't finish it there, then you have to ask what's a significant enough moment. The Battle of the Gullet could potentially be a significant enough moment if they decide to end it on that. There are a number of other battles, but none of the around that time, but none of them were with our main characters. I think they want to be ending this with our main characters. So the end of season 1, we had Battle of Breaker Bay, the death of Lucerys, and then we end basically on Dana telling Rhaenyra, and then her face is like the face of war. So that's the point to end. We end with her, and we have to end this season with something significant with some of our main characters. I'd say it's 60 to 70%. I'm sure it will be the taking of King's Landing. Andrew Case saying, was that dream fire near the end of the Greens trailer? Anointing, hard to tell. We haven't seen it before anyway. I don't know. I would have to go and double check. I think the thing I found hardest incidentally in this, in looking at these trailers and analysing, is actually dragons, because they are doing a good job of making the dragons look and feel slightly different. But if there's bad lighting, then it's still really quite hard to tell. I mean, it's a dragon far away. It's not the greatest lighting. It's not, that's probably the hardest thing. But happy to have people answer that question. Ravens, this is the if Vagar hadn't been there. Ravens Oath saying Greens would have lost in the day. Yes, agreed. Weirwood saying Lucerys would have lived. Yes. That's. I think I'm going to have a quick flick through the chat now. One of Ray saying the South got lucky that the Starks showed up late. They did, and I'm really looking forward to that. I think that is a fascinating moment where the shift comes when you read the book, and I hope that they replicate this in some way on the TV show. We get the Dragon start coming down with the Northerners. For those who can't remember, who haven't got that far in the book yet, they had right at the end of the war, because they're in the north. It takes them a long time to come down south. By the time they reach King's Landing, um, basically it's all everything's finished. Um, the both sides have been pretty much destroyed. Um, but around and about the Seven Kingdoms, there are still various other families who haven't yet accepted the new king. The new king at this point being Aegon the Third. Um, now, what Cregan Stark basically says is that, all right, I'm going to deal with stuff here at King's Landing, and then I'm going to take my lads and we'll go and attack all these other places that haven't yet signed up to the new plan. Let's go and attack Casterly Rock. Let's go head down into the Reach and take on a few places there. So basically, Cregan Stark wanting to keep the war going. And what I think works really well in the book is that we see the survivors who and the wise old heads, people like Corlys Velaryon, and someone like Larys Strong, they basically work through a plan with the help of Black Alley that says, okay, we need the war to stop. It's caused too much damage. We were on different sides, but we're now just wanting to end the war. We're going to work together to stop the war. And they wrote off to all these places and say, right, you really just need to accept this, or otherwise you're going to get a whole load of angry Northerners coming at you. And it worked. Basically, they managed to get the Seven Kingdoms to all agree, sort of under threat if the Starks coming to get them. Andrew Kay talking about the season one, most episodes need to be the full hour, with only 8 episodes. Yeah, I think we are going to get long episodes again. We did actually season one of House of the Dragon. We had 10 episodes, and they were all long episodes. I think they averaged about an hour, or which was, if you take a Game of Thrones episode, then that certainly the last couple of seasons they had longer episodes, but in the early seasons, then 45 minutes were what we're at. So these were 10 long episodes. Through the chat, Martin S saying season 2 is likely to be more intense but darker than season 1. Right, yes, I think so. So season 1, the feel was very much, here is the slow, inexorable march towards war, and you saw that the whole thing was kind of shown to us in the physical appearance of Viserys. So that's the way that I interpreted this, is that as his health just deteriorated, that's when you could just see us getting closer to war. So it was it meant that, I mean, it was never a bright and cheery series, I don't think. But when we get to season 2, then it should get dark and darker further in we go. Even the bits that they could have made a bit lighter, Harrenhal to start with, they've clearly decided, okay, we're going to make it actually dark and raining. So it's literally going to be dark quite a lot of the time. And I think seasons 3 and 4 should be even worse, I have to say. But yeah, you're saying, is it more intense? Yes, as well. The one thing, George R. Martin, when he came out to London, visited the studios, he was showing the first 2 episodes, and he's always open about this. He says that I'm probably not the best judge because, obviously it's my own thing, but I thought they were amazing. And at least one of the people he was with cried. He said, "This has to be Blood and Cheese, I think, which will probably have the same kind of impact, I think, as Red Wedding." And from then on, it's just going to get more intense and dark. Terry's read it before, saying, "Thank you for doing the lives when I do." have to be up past my bedtime. Uh, well, thank you for saying that. Yeah, yes, they often do. We're actually in this weird. Um, this happens once a year when I try and keep the time I do the live streams at the um, same time Eastern time in America, simply because that's where the largest group of people on that time zone. That's the largest group of people who watch these live streams. Um, Normally, that means I start them at 10 o'clock my time, but in America, the clocks have changed. They've gone forward already, and they haven't yet in the UK, and they won't until I think next week, which means I'm actually starting these at 9 o'clock rather than 10 o'clock. So um, it's now only 11:30 in the evening rather than 12:30. So it's not quite as bad these last 2 weeks, but thank you for having me. That's very kind. Um, Commander Ray saying, I would have climbed Castley Rock for Cregan Stark. Dude was great, only his wife was cooler. Yeah, his wife. I think we're going to see, we should see Black Alley in this. I don't know if I've not really paid huge amounts of attention to casting this for this season, it has to be said. But yeah, I'm hoping we might get a first sight of Black Alley here. That's Alison Blackwood, for those who are wondering. That's just her nickname, Black Alley. Um, Andrew Kay saying Mellie's is to me an underrated loss. Given her size, ferocity, and agility, she might have had a chance against Vagar 1v1. That's what it says, actually, intriguingly, in Fire and Blood. Is that if it had just been her and Vagar, then she might have had a chance. But Sunfire was there as well. So basically, the implication of the way that it's written in the book is that Rhaenys decides to sacrifice herself in order to get rid of one of the two dragons that are defending him. Now, this does fit in, and I don't know whether they're going to go down this route, but this does fit in with how they're trying to put Rhaenys' character on the show. She's the person who is wanting to slow this march into all-out war. She's giving wise here in this trailers we've had here the wise words. Have a think about this. Once we get into all-out war, then there's no turning back. Maybe she flips her brain to the point where she goes, "Okay, I can now take out one of these two dragons, and if I do that, then Team Black will have a numerical superiority, and the war will be over quicker." Maybe that's where they're going to take. Klaus Ballerina, do I think Helena will have an expanded role like it seems Baela and Rhaenyra will? Will she ever fight? I don't think Helena will ever fight. They have given her an expanded role by making her be the dragon. They've given her an expanded role already. The question for me is what they do with her now. So it's all building up. Her big moment, as it were, tragic moment, will be with Blood and Cheese. After that, in the book, it's not that she doesn't do anything, but she just withdraws into herself and she doesn't engage with the war. Now, are they going to do more with her? I think they liked having her being the dragon dreamer, whoever the Cassandra figure that everybody ignores, but she's telling the truth. I think they will keep that and just have her dropping in a few prophetic words, can they? Um, Cash Ballerina saying maybe she sacrifices Rhaenys, maybe she sacrifices herself to save Baela. Yeah, that's entirely possible. Varys Aurelius saying, my guess is we get scenes of the Starks in the north from time to time in seasons 2 to 4 until they actually march down. We may, or they may just leave that and just have the Starks arriving when they arrive, because otherwise you've got what will be 1.5 seasons or whatever it is of here's Cregan at Winterfell waiting for all the troops to arrive. Here's him heading on down the King's Road. Here's him, they've made it through the neck. I mean, I would find it fascinating. A little bit of a road trip. I'd love to actually see the trip down south, but if they had to trim that from the show, I think I would understand it. All the artsy saying the scenes with the ashes and Alicent in the Vale is that after Blood and Cheese. That's the working assumption. Yep, I think we assume that that's what that is. Red Rex and Wolf comes first. I hope they don't cut them. I think they might cut them. So yeah, there's two. There's the Winter Wolves, and then we get basically we get this is connected in with White Harbor. So this is they go to Jacaerys in the book goes to White Harbor first, signs a marriage contract there, then goes up to Winterfell. This is important because White Harbor is and House Manderley is the second biggest, most important family in the north. So he's got them on side, then he goes up to the Starks and gets them on side. The Manderleys are closer to the south because they're right at the bottom, and they've got a port as well, so they arrive actually in time for the ball. Some of their troops there, it's Cregan and all of the really northern that take a lot longer. That's having a Commander Ray saying, "Are we there yet?" Some northerner probably. Yeah, absolutely. Beresarella saying, "Thing is, they will need Cregan's actor to do something right." I mean, I don't know how the contract would work, but I could well imagine that they say, "We're signing you up for this, and then we'll need you again in 3 years' time." I'm sure that's entirely doable. Okay, with that, I think I'm going to start to draw this one to a close. I really enjoyed this playlist, and I hope you enjoyed the breakdown of them. Just so you know, I don't know whether I actually included the. Maybe I didn't. Here we go. June the 16th. There we go. That's the last slide. Just to make everybody aware, June the 16th is when episode 1 is happening. There's going to be 8 episodes. So this is a Sunday, which is the normal Thrones House of the Dragon kind of timing. So my assumption is that it will be the same 9 p.m. East, which is annoyingly 2 a.m. for me. But yeah, that's it. Next week we will be back with a normal live stream about House Voice. We're going to do a deep dive into the houses of the Vale. And in terms of videos that are coming up, I always forget what I've got coming up, but I've got I'm working on one on Galadriel's gifts over in the Lord of the Rings side of the house, and I've got one. I think the next one I've got coming up tomorrow is Jon Snow's real name, which is something I gave a lot of thought to a long time ago. But I keep on getting asked this in live streams about what's his Targaryen name. And so I've given it a proper thought. I thought about it properly when we had whichever season it was it season 7 of Game of Thrones when we had the reveal of what his name was there. But I haven't taken that as a starting point. I've tried to work what it should be. There's one little bit in the books that I hadn't noticed really before that I think gives a magnificent clue as to what his real name is. So anyway, I think that's the video I've got coming out tomorrow over on the main channel, appearing somewhere here-ish. If you're watching back a bit later, there's a link to other live streams. If you want to watch some of them appearing somewhere around here, is a link to my Patreon page if you'd like to support this channel. That is all for this time, everyone. Thank you, moderators. Thank you, patrons. See you next week.